Alright, chemistry. You might think it's a little strange that I'm doing it this way, but it occurs to me that I'm not going to be there for at least one lab, and I should have like a backup copy of this just in case I'm not in. There can always be a lab or two that I'll have the procedure done for that you guys can watch. This picture, wait, where? That way. That picture is a picture of a piece of lab equipment that hopefully we'll get to use this year. And it is the first thing on the first lab in your lab manual, which should be labeled lab equipment and safety, right? It's pages 1 and 2, and it lists a bunch of names, and then there's like blank space to draw a picture, and then there's a line for the description of the item. Now, you don't need to be incredibly detailed. You don't need to be incredibly like perfect with your drawings. This is really more just so that you get a feel for what these pieces of equipment are, so that when I say, hey, make sure that you guys are using the Crucible tongs, not the beaker tongs, or if I were to say, please make sure not to drop the Crucible because it is ceramic and you are getting it hot, so it might shatter, right? So that if I say stuff like that, you won't be like, huh? What is he talking about? You'll have some idea, like, oh yeah, we talked about that. It kind of looks a little funny. I know what to look for now. All right. So the first item should be the ring stand. Now this right here is the ring stand. I took these pictures from my desk in my classroom, obviously doing the recording from a different spot. I just didn't want to bring all the stuff home. So this is the ring stand. There's a pencil next to it for scale, so it's probably about 2 feet tall, this post, and it's just a solid metal stand. And the ring stand's purpose is to hold the ring. That's it. That's the whole purpose. The ring's coming soon. The next piece is the Bunsen burner, right? This is typically the favorite part, the favorite piece of equipment because it starts fires, right? Up here is where fire comes out. This side over here is an attachment to put the gas line, so the gas connects here. These are vents for air, right? This knob is like the knob on a gas stove or a gas grill. You turn it one way, you get more gas. You turn it the other way, you get less gas. So you can control gas here. You can control air here. When you spark right here, you can have flame, right? Anywhere from this much, an itty bitty flame, to like a solid like 5 to 6 inches of flame. It's fairly rare that we will use 5 to 6 inches of flame, but every so often it might happen. Now, we use a Bunsen burner. It is a source of open flame. Typically, I would avoid using open flame with high school students. However, the obvious danger, in my opinion, is better than a hot plate, because hot plates get hot and you don't like pay attention to them, and you might put your hand down and no more fingerprints for a little while. Please don't mess around with the fire. If something happens, turn this knob so that the fire goes out. There's no more gas, no more fire, right? Or you turn off the valve of the gas at the source. So on the lab benches at school, there are the valves for the gas. You just close that. If it's something that's even bigger than that, there's a big red button in the back of the room. You'll see it. You might see it later in a picture. The next item is the ring over here and clamp. The purpose of the Bunton burner, by the way, is to provide fire for experiments. So it's our flame source. The ring and clamp look like this, all right? Its purpose is to hold glassware, and its real place is on the ring stand. So remember when I said the ring stand holds the ring? This is what I meant. The clamp attaches to the stand, the screw tightens it, and you can place it above the Bunsen burner. It holds glassware. Now, there's some glassware that might fall through. There are some other pieces of equipment that might fall through that normally. To prevent things from falling through, we use a wire mesh, right? It's a bunch of wires. There is some, this section is insulated with, I think, like a plaster of Paris. But the purpose of the wire mesh is extra support, right? I put this on top of the ring so that a piece of glassware doesn't fall through the ring, or it doesn't tilt on the ring, right? It has a nice base. The next item is the Crucible. Oh, not buying what you're selling. Please stop calling here. Sorry about that. The Crucible and top. Now, the Crucible will usually be slightly bigger than this, but it looks like a little teacup, right? And the top, or lid, I think it's Crucible on top. The top to the Crucible is just something to cover it up, to prevent anything from escaping, or to prevent many things from escaping, right? The purpose of the Crucible on top, there are 2 lines for the purpose, you only need to use one of them. The purpose for the Crucible on top is to hold chemicals in the flame, right? Not above the flame like this, but there's another device that I can use, there's another piece of equipment that I can use to hold it literally right in the flame. The nice thing about the Crucible is that it's made of ceramic, or there are others that are made of metal. They can withstand that heat, that direct flame from the Bunton Burner, and you can hold it right in there for minutes on end. Nothing will happen. It might glow, but it won't shatter like glass might. All right, the next piece is a clay triangle. It's precisely what you would think. It's a triangle, also it's made out of clay. The purpose for the clay triangle is the same as the purpose from the wire mesh a few pictures ago. Right? It's just extra support. There are some crucibles that are slightly bigger. They fit right into the clay triangle. I don't know what that was. They fit right into the clay triangle, and you can use this to hold it in the flame, because again, the clay and the metal, this is ceramic and metal, this is not going to melt or shatter or anything in the heat of the flame. Now there are 2 sets of tongs next. It says like beaker and crucible and then etc. There's no etc. It's just 2. These are the beaker tongs, and what I want you to kind of really notice are the black tips at the end here. These are rubber. The reason these are rubber is for grip, for beakers. Beakers are made of glass. It's fairly hard to grab something made of glass that's metal. So the rubber is there so that you have something to grip onto. Because they are rubber, these will not be what you use to reach in and out of flame. Instead, you'll use these tongs. These are crucible tongs. You'll notice that there's a small gap here, and then there are pincers on the end, right? You can use the pincers to grab something, or perhaps you would use this section, this little cutout section, to grip the crucible, right? Again, some crucibles are larger. Most of the crucibles that we'll use are larger, so you can grab them in that little cutout section, right? Both sets of tongs are used to move glassware or to move crucibles. It's to move equipment around that's hot. I don't want y'all touching stuff with your hands. You only get 2 hands, so we can get many tongs. Alright, this is a test tube holder, and I believe this is the first item on the second page of the lab. Now the test tube holder does exactly what it sounds like. It holds test tubes. Right, similarly, sometimes you'll have to hold the test tube above the flame. I don't want y'all holding that test tube with your hand. It's going to be hot. So the test tube holder allows you to hold the test tube above or near the flame for some kind of heat. Test tube holder, it's you pinch it to release, and then you actually let it go so that it will grip. So they're like this. That's what they do. Right, they grab the test tube. Next piece is a graduated cylinder. You've seen those dozens of times. We have plastic ones because the glass ones tended to break. So the purpose of the graduated cylinder is to measure liquid chemicals. That's all it does. Next you have the funnel and a pipette or an eyedropper. Technically this one's a pipette. Later we might actually just have eyedroppers. The purpose of both of these items is to transfer liquid chemicals. Typically from something with a big opening to a small opening. So if I wanted to move something from this graduated cylinder into the test tube, I might miss, I might spill. In order to avoid that, I'd probably ask you to use a funnel or a pipette. The next piece is a stirring rod. Now, it might be hard to tell from the picture, but this stirring rod is made of glass. And we actually don't use stirring rods anymore. The purpose of it would be to stir liquid chemicals or to stir chemicals, but we don't use them because they are glass. Glass tends to break. Breaking glass makes sharp edges, and that's paperwork, right? We don't use those. What we use instead is a spatula. And I put spatula in quotation marks because you're going to recognize this item as something else. Here it is, the blue thing. It's an icy straw, right? This is just a Slurpee straw, right, that you would get from the convenience store. What we use the spatula for is actually to stir things. One, it's made of plastic. It does not react with many of the chemicals that we'll be using. 2, It's made of plastic, so it's not going to break, no matter how excited you get while you're stirring. Third, it is hollow, so I can scoop things up on this end and allow it to slide through into another container, right? So the purpose of the spatula is actually twofold. It can stir chemicals, or it can transfer solid chemicals, right? As long as they're small enough. There are a few times where you will actually use this. I don't want y'all touching chemicals with your hands. Value your hands, people. Alright, the next item is a set of tweezers. They're tweezers. You use them to transfer solid chemicals. Again, there might be pellets or gravel type, like that kind of consistency. Don't want you using your hands. Use the tweezers. The next item is the evaporating dish, and it's this guy right here that's sitting on the wire mesh. It's like a little itty bitty mixing bowl with a spout so that you can pour stuff. It's made of ceramic. The purpose of the evaporating dish is to hold chemicals to evaporate, right? Usually we put some kind of a water-based solution in here, and we allow the water to evaporate, revealing whatever chemical is left behind, typically a solid. You'll notice that I put something on top of it here. It's like a giant contact lens, and it's the watch glass, which should be your next item. The watch glass, the purpose of the watch glass, is to cover glassware. And you might think, like, why would you want to cover it? Didn't you just say you want stuff to evaporate? Well, yeah, but sometimes I also want you to watch what's happening without risking stuff getting all up in your face or in your eyes, you breathing it in directly. So the watch glass, remember that spout on the evaporating dish, it will vent any gas away, and you'll be able to watch what happens below. Now, there are two items left. They are both pieces of glassware. They both have the same purpose, so you can write it just once. Both of the purposes are to hold chemicals. Right, this is a beaker. It's the same diameter throughout, right? This is kind of like a typical thing that you would see in a science lab. The more science-y one, right, with the narrow neck and then it widens out, is called an Erlenmeyer flask, right? Now, these two items are both 250 milliliters. Alright? They're different shapes because they're used for different purposes. A beaker is more all-purpose. I can use this for kind of everything. Usually, an Erlenmeyer flask would be used if you want a reaction to happen and you want it to stay in there. So I can put a stopper on top of this very easily. And I can seal it up, and everything that happens is just trapped in there. Whereas in the beaker, some stuff might escape, and I might be okay with that. Right? Now, Erlenmeyer flask is the last item, but there are three pieces of safety equipment, right, that I'd like you to remember that are present. The first is the fire extinguisher. It is right next to the door. That is intentional. You'd think, why wouldn't it be closer to the gas or the back of the room? The fire extinguisher is mislabeled. It's really more of a fire suppressor. You can use it to put out small fires. But in the case of like large building fires or a room fire, what it would do is suppress the flame long enough to get everyone to a safe area. Alright, but the fire extinguisher is one piece of safety equipment. A second piece of safety equipment is right up here. It's the emergency shower. This is used in a very single and rare case. It's for large personal fires. If a literal person is on fire, I would use this. I suppose, actually, now thinking about it, you may use this if a large amount of chemical got onto your head or your torso, your upper torso. You go to the emergency shower to rinse it out. We don't use this very often. I use it, we try to test it once every month, once every couple months, just to make sure that nothing is backed up. It's a bit annoying. There's paperwork to fill out just because I'd prefer not to use it. Right. The third piece of safety equipment is back here, and it's this little sink with the two nozzles. If you push this lever, right, water shoots out of that. It's actually an emergency eye wash. That's what this is. This is the eye wash. And it specifically is for if chemicals get into your eyes. What it does is it's fairly strong water jets. They go into your eyes. They force chemicals out of it. So it just constantly flushes things out of your eyes. Right. That big red button, you can see the tiniest bit. This is an emergency gas valve shutoff. There's a big red button. So it's actually right here. It's just hidden. If there is a Bunton Burner fire that doesn't seem to want to go out with the knob on the Bunsen burner, doesn't seem to want to go out with the knob on the lab bench, then somebody, probably me, would go back here and hit the big red button. It shuts off all of the gas to the room. At that point, the fire should go out. Now, that's all of that. Normally I would have you hand this in. However, given the circumstances, I think it is safer, safety, right? I think it is safer for you to take those 2 pages and leave them in order with the rest of your labs. Right, so wherever you are kind of compiling your notes and your labs and such, leave it there so that it's safe. I know that you've done the lab, right? At the end, we can check off, okay, does everybody have this lab? Does everybody have this lab? That way, you are responsible. You are keeping track of your lab folder, all right? Okay, now, again, this is just like an emergency record, I guess, for lack of a better term, of the labs. This is gonna go in its own topic up on my CBA. Until next time, chemistry. I'll see ya.